Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're tackling something I know a lot of us struggle with, and you guys specifically requested the whole comparison game and how to just be happy with, our own
Oh,
lives.
yeah.
So we're going deep on this awesome piece from Zen Habits. It's called Life's Enough. Stop comparing yourself to others.
Love that title.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
just sums it all up. And
I gotta say,
I think we've all been there. Like, you're scrolling through Instagram, you see someone's amazing vacation photos, and suddenly your weekend trip seems kind of lame.
totally. Or like when you see a coworker just crushing it, effortlessly balancing
Hmm.
work and life, and you're over here like drowning in emails.
Exactly. And it's not just about feeling, worse than others. The blog pointed out how even comparing yourself favorably can mess you up.
Yeah, it's not just like simple low self-esteem.
Mm.
There's some deeper psychology behind why we do this and why it's so hard to stop.
So the blog had this example of a reader in India who's doing pretty well financially, providing for his family, but all his colleagues are from super rich backgrounds.
Yeah, the classic everyone else is doing better situation.
He knows objectively he's doing okay, but those feelings of not being good enough still creep in. Like, I remember this one time I was at a totally decent restaurant, but then someone posted about their fancy Michelin star meal, and suddenly my food tasted, I don't know, less exciting.
And that's that upward social comparison thing at work. It's actually a super old survival mechanism back when comparing yourself to those with more stuff was important.
Mhm.
But now, it mostly just stresses us out.
Our brains are like stuck in this ancient mode, constantly sizing everyone up, even when it doesn't help us anymore.
Exactly right.
It's crazy. It's like my brain is hardwired for comparison, even for stuff as silly as who has more Instagram followers.
It's everywhere.
The blog had this simple trick. Whenever you catch yourself comparing, you literally say, stop that, out loud.
I love that.
Right. It's like hitting a reset button.
It might sound kind of cheesy, but interrupting those thought patterns is super powerful. There's also this whole thing about counting your blessings. Might sound a bit corny at first, I know, but it works.
It does.
If you really think about it, focusing on the good stuff retrains your brain to notice what's already great instead of what's supposedly missing.
I've got to admit, when I actually stop to think about it, there's a lot to be happy about. Like, I've got a comfy place, a job that's mostly fun, and let's not forget my amazing vintage board game collection. I've got the best collection. But yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in wanting more that I forget to appreciate what I've already got.
That's exactly it. Shifting your perspective changes so much. Research even shows gratitude can boost happiness and even improve your physical health.
That's awesome. A little gratitude and I'm healthier.
Who wouldn't want that?
And then the blog reminds us to focus on what we're good at, not just what we think we lack, like recognizing our strength, however weird or unique they are. So what are some of your strengths? No need to be modest here.
Well, I'm really good at connecting ideas that don't seem related at first, which is helpful for, these deep dives.
Makes sense.
And also surprisingly good at parallel parking, which maybe not as useful, but hey, I'm proud of it.
I love that. Everyone's got their unique talents.
For sure. And that leads perfectly to another point from the blog. Embracing imperfection. They remind us that nobody's perfect and chasing some impossible ideal that just sets you up for disappointment.
Ugh, that's so true.
There's this pressure to achieve a certain kind of success. But what if our so-called flaws are actually what make us interesting and relatable?
It's like we try so hard to fit in that we forget to stand out.
Exactly. Being your authentic self is way more valuable.
And the blog makes this great point about how knocking others down to feel better about ourselves actually backfires. Like, when someone who seems to have it all goes through something rough and there's this little part of you that feels relieved.
Oh, yeah.
It's totally human.
Yeah, it is.
But the blog reminds us that it doesn't actually help in the long run and can even hurt our connections with people.
You get this temporary ego boost, but at the cost of real connection.
Right. And that leads us to one of the most insightful parts of the blog. Shifting our focus from competition to the journey.
Okay, yeah.
It's the idea that life isn't this race against everyone else. It's a personal exploration with twists and turns unique to you.
Love that. It's like comparing ourselves to others is constantly checking the map instead of actually experiencing the landscape of our own lives.
You miss out on all the beauty and the lessons by fixating on where everyone else is.
Exactly. Imagine you're hiking a gorgeous trail, but you're so busy looking at your map to see if you're ahead of other hikers that you don't even notice the stunning views or the interesting plants along the way.
Yeah.
You've missed the whole point.
Right. It's about embracing our own path. even with its imperfections and unexpected detours.
I'm with you on that one.
And the blog's conclusion is so powerful. Learning to love enough is the key to escaping the comparison trap. If we're always wanting what others have, we'll never be truly satisfied.
That's so true, and it speaks volumes about our modern culture, doesn't it? We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us we need more, more, more to be happy.
It's like this never-ending cycle.
What if instead of chasing the next thing, we focused on finding contentment with what we already possess? That's where I think true freedom lies.
That's a powerful thought. So how do we actually start putting this into practice? Learning to love enough sounds great in theory, but how do we do that when the world's constantly telling us we need to be doing more, achieving more, having more?
It's a real challenge, for sure. The blog doesn't give us some magic solution, and honestly, I don't think there is one. But what it does remind us is that contentment isn't something you find, it's something you build. It's a practice, like meditation or exercise.
Okay.
You have to choose to shift your focus away from what you lack and towards what you have, from what you want to be to who you already are.
I love that. Contentment is a practice. Makes it seem less like this impossible, perfect happiness and more like something you can work towards. So what are some steps we can take to actually cultivate that sense of enough in our lives?
Well, the count your blessings thing we talked about earlier is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Might sound cheesy, but actually writing down things you're grateful for every day can really change your mindset.
Okay.
It's like training your brain to seek out the good stuff.
I've tried that gratitude journaling thing before, and I gotta be honest, sometimes it felt a bit forced. Like, okay, I'm grateful for the sunshine and for my coffee and for...
Yeah.
It started feeling like a chore.
I get that.
Mm.
And sometimes life just throws you stuff that makes it hard to feel grateful.
Mm.
But even then, there's usually something to appreciate. Even something small, like a cup of tea on a cold day or a good laugh with a friend.
Yeah, I guess so.
The point isn't to pretend to be grateful for things you're not. It's about intentionally noticing the good parts of your life, even if they seem small.
That makes sense. It's like choosing to focus on the positive, even when things are tough. So besides gratitude, are there other things we can do to escape this comparison trap?
One thing that really clicks for me is focusing on our own journey, like we were saying before. Instead of always comparing ourselves, what if we celebrated the uniqueness of our own path?
Interesting.
It's about acknowledging that everyone has their own timeline, their own struggles, their own definition of success.
It's like that saying, comparison is the thief of joy. When we're so busy looking at what others are doing, we miss out on the beauty and the lessons of our own experience. I remember this one time I was so caught up comparing my career to a friend who seemed to be doing amazingly well. I constantly felt behind, inadequate, and even a little resentful.
That's so relatable. It's easy to fall into that trap of comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. We forget that everyone has struggles, even those who seem to have it all figured out.
Exactly. It was only when I shifted my focus away from her achievements and towards my own goals and passions that I started to feel content and like I had a purpose. I realized my journey was just as varied, even if it looked different from hers.
That's such a great example of how shifting from needing external validation to finding fulfillment within yourself can be so powerful.
Yeah.
It's about finding joy in the process, in the challenges, and in the unique experiences you have.
So the blog also encourages us to embrace our imperfections, right? It's about letting go of the need to be perfect and accepting ourselves, warts and all.
Absolutely. Instead of trying to fit some perfect mold, we should celebrate what makes us different. He even argues that our so-called flaws are often what make us interesting and relatable. Think about it. Who are you more drawn to, someone who seems perfectly polished or someone who's willing to be vulnerable and show their true selves, flaws and all?
That's a good point. I think we're often so afraid of judgment that we hide parts of ourselves that we think are unacceptable or not good enough. But those imperfections are what make us human, what help us connect with others more deeply.
It's like the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, which is about finding beauty in imperfection and impermanence. The idea that things are more interesting and meaningful because they're flawed and impermanent, this applies to objects, experiences, and even ourselves.
So instead of erasing our flaws, what if we embraced them as part of what makes us unique? What if we allowed ourselves to be perfectly imperfect?
I think that's where true confidence comes from, not from pretending you have it all together, but from accepting yourself, warts and all. It's about recognizing that our imperfections don't diminish our worth. They actually enhance it. They're part of what makes you, well, you.
This deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand how to break free from this constant comparison game and embrace my own journey.
Me too. It's been such a great reminder that contentment isn't about having everything we want. It's about appreciating what we already have and finding joy in the journey, imperfections and all.
It's like we're on this treadmill of always wanting more, but never getting off to actually enjoy what we've accomplished. So, to wrap up our deep dive into life's enough, stop comparing yourself to others. Let's recap the main points and maybe leave our listener with some food for thought.
Yeah, that sounds good. What really hit home for me was how comparison is like this sneaky thief that steals your joy.
Hmm.
It's so easy to get caught up in measuring yourself against others, whether it's their stuff, achievements, or even how happy they seem.
And we talked about how this constant comparing, this focus on what we're supposedly lacking, can lead to feeling not good enough, envious, or even resentful. It can keep us stuck on this treadmill of wanting more and never actually being satisfied with what we have.
Right. But the good news is we can totally break free from this. The Zen Habits blog gave us some practical tools to do just that. We talked about how important it is to count our blessings and focus on what we're grateful for, even when things are tough. We also explored how powerful it is to shift your focus from competing to enjoying the journey, recognizing that everyone's got their own path and their own timeline.
And we discussed embracing our imperfections, celebrating our unique strengths, and letting go of that need to be perfect. It's about finding that sweet spot of contentment where we can appreciate what we have and who we are without constantly comparing ourselves to everyone else.
I think that's a perfect way to sum it up. So as you go about your day, remember this. If comparison is the thief of joy, embracing your own unique journey is the key to unlocking true happiness. What do you think?
I think that's a powerful message to take with us from this deep dive. It's so easy to get trapped in that comparison game, but you've given us some amazing tools to break free and start celebrating our own journeys.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a practice. Some days it'll be easier than others. There'll be times when that comparison gremlin sneaks back in, and that's okay. The important thing is to notice it, remember what we talked about, and gently bring your focus back to your own path.
It's like having a mental toolkit for dealing with those comparison moments. We can say, stop that, count our blessings, remind ourselves that everyone's on their own journey, and embrace our perfectly imperfect selves.
You got it. The more we practice these things, the easier it gets to shift our mindset from scarcity to abundance, from comparison to contentment.
So for everyone listening, I hope this deep dive has been as insightful for you as it has been for me. I'm definitely leaving with a new appreciation for my own journey, flaws and all.
And remember, the next time you're scrolling through social media and feeling that pang of comparison, take a deep breath, remember what we've talked about, and choose to focus on the beauty and the lessons of your own unique path.
That's a great place to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep celebrating your own amazing journey.
Yeah, that's a really great point. It's all about taking those little steps and building those habits over time.
Exactly. And, it's important to remember that this whole comparison thing, it's not about pretending that everything's perfect or that we shouldn't have goals and aspirations.
Right, it's not about settling.
Yeah, exactly. It's about finding that balance between striving for growth and being content with where we are right now. It's about recognizing that our worth isn't tied to what we achieve or what we have.
So it's like being ambitious, but not letting that ambition steal our joy.
Exactly. It's about finding joy in the process, in the journey itself, not just the destination.
It makes me think about those times when I've been so focused on reaching a certain goal, like getting a promotion or hitting a certain number of followers online, that I completely forgot to enjoy the work I was doing to get there. Oh yeah, I've been there too. It's like we get so caught up in the outcome that we miss the beauty of the journey itself.
And then even when we achieve those goals, it's like there's always something else to strive for. It's never enough.
It's that classic moving the goalpost syndrome. We hit one target and immediately set our sights on the next one, never really taking the time to celebrate our accomplishments or appreciate how far we've come.
So how do we break free from that cycle? How do we learn to celebrate those wins, big and small, and find satisfaction in the present moment, even while we're working towards our goals?
I think it starts with awareness.
Yeah.
Noticing when we're falling into that trap of constantly chasing the next thing and gently reminding ourselves to pause, take a breath, and appreciate what we've already accomplished.
It's like hitting that pause button on the treadmill of life and taking a moment to appreciate the view.
Exactly. And it's also about shifting our focus from external validation to internal fulfillment. Instead of seeking approval from others, we can ask ourselves, what brings me joy? What makes me feel proud of myself?
And those things might be completely different from what society tells us we should be doing or achieving.
Exactly. It's about defining success on our own terms, based on our own values and aspirations, not on what other people think or expect of us.
I love that. It's about creating our own definition of enough. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this final thought. What if, instead of constantly striving for more, we focused on cultivating a sense of gratitude for what we already have and who we already are?
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. And, it doesn't mean we have to give up on our dreams or stop growing and evolving. It simply means that we can choose to find joy and contentment in the present moment, even while we're working towards our goals.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as I did. Remember, comparison might be the thief of joy, but embracing our own unique journey is the key to unlocking true happiness. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep celebrating your own amazing journey.